The first thing that should have tipped me off was the smell. Not the comforting scent of old paper and cedar, but something metallic and sharp, like ozone after a lightning strike, mixed with the faint, sweet decay of forgotten things. My fingers traced the edges of a birth certificate I'd never seen, the paper unnaturally smooth and cold against my skin. Then came the sound. Not from the house, but from inside the walls. A wet, rhythmic scratching, as if something were trying to dig its way out. Every photograph in the album I held was of me, but the people I called my parents were in none of them. The air in the room grew thick and stagnant, pressing down like a physical weight, making each breath a conscious effort, and in that moment, a single, paralyzing truth eclipsed everything. The family I loved, the history I cherished, every memory that shaped me was a lie. Someone, or something, had meticulously built my entire life around a void where the truth should have been. Our entire existence was a meticulously crafted deception. The scent of ozone and sterile plastic filled the air as the DNA kit box slammed onto the table with finality. The screen's cold blue glow revealed the only truth left. The single, impossible word. Match. 0%. This is the moment when the foundation of your life, the story you never thought to doubt, is revealed as nothing but a terrifying fiction. The Miller family. We were the picture of normalcy. My dad, John, the stoic engineer who built us a treehouse with his own hands. That treehouse stood in our backyard for years, a testament to his careful craftsmanship and our childhood innocence. But sometimes, the foundations we trust most are the ones that hide the deepest secrets. And in our home, beneath the surface of that perfect normalcy, something had begun to stir. My mother, Linda, whose laughter could saturate a room and whose Thanksgiving feasts became family legend. My older brother Mike, my protector and partner in crime. We had the arguments, the private jokes, the shared history, the pale scar on Mike's chin from when I pushed him off his bike. Mom's chocolate chip cookie recipe, once filled with warmth, now felt like a cold relic. Dad's stories about his grandfather, the Pennsylvania coal miner, echoed hollowly in the sterile room. The air smelled faintly of ozone and dust, like a memory beginning to rot. Every surface was clean, cold to the touch, and utterly silent. Sarah stares into the lens, her expression hollowed by dread. The DNA test was a gag gift from Mike's wife at Christmas. Find out if you're really 1% pirate. We all did it. Mom, Dad, Mike, me. We mailed them off together, chuckling at what bizarre traits we'd uncover. It felt like nothing more than a contemporary party gag, a bit of modern curiosity. Then came the family Christmas gathering, all laughter and torn wrapping paper. The air smelled faintly of pine and anticipation, a normal holiday moment. They all swabbed their cheeks playfully, then forgot the kits as life moved on. 6 weeks later, the emails began appearing in their inboxes. Sarah sat alone with her laptop, the only light in the dark room. The air grew heavy as she stared at the screen, a metallic scent of ozone creeping into the room. The monitor's eerie blue light washed over her face as she narrated. I clicked my results first. Predictable ancestry from the British Isles and Scandinavia. Then I navigated to the DNA relatives page, the cursor hovering over the link. The top match loaded, its relationship prediction stark against the dark background. Parent/child. Sibling. My heart faltered. Mike must have clicked his already. But the name listed wasn't Mike Miller. It was a woman's name, Eleanor R. The air in the room suddenly felt thick and cold. A metallic scent, like old pennies, seemed to hang in the stillness. The lab results were conclusive. Shared DNA, 50%. Sarah's voice, now a hollow whisper, addresses us directly. 50%. Her next words drop into the heavy silence, each one measured and chilling. That's a parent or a child. The final admission comes out flat. Fine. I didn't have a child. My eyes locked onto the anomaly. A digital aberration that shouldn't exist. The site was fresh, still in its infancy. Technical hiccups were expected, yet this felt different. A cold, metallic scent of ozone seemed to seep from the monitor. My fingers went numb against the keyboard. A faint, high-pitched whine like damaged electronics began to hum from the speakers. The rational explanation was a simple glitch, but in that moment, a primal instinct whispered that something had noticed me staring back. Sarah called Mike again and again. Each time, her call tumbled straight to voicemail. Her texts pulsed into the digital void, met only by a flat, unread receipt. The air in her own apartment grew thick and stale, smelling faintly of dust and old anxiety. A hollow certainty settled in her chest. Mike wasn't answering. With a trembling hand, I committed the unthinkable and logged into my father's account. He'd used the same password for everything. Miller Strong. The page loaded, and there it was, his top match. Sarah Miller. Shared DNA. 50%. A cold, sticky dread began to pool in my stomach. The confirmation hung in the air, heavy and metallic, like the scent of ozone before a storm. Good, my breath hitched. That single word echoed in the sudden, profound quiet of the room. My cursor descended. His second highest match was a man in Florida. The label read, predicted, half-brother, shared DNA, 25%. A half-brother he never mentioned? Possible, I guess. But then, no Linda, no Mike. His wife and son were nowhere among his top matches. My fingers grew numb with cold. I logged into my mother's account. Her top match was me as well. 50%. And a wave of relief washed over me. But scrolling further, the damp air grew heavy with ozone. My finger froze where John's name should have been, replaced by an empty void. The only sound was the sticky click of the mouse button echoing in the stillness. She stared at the results. Not at Mike's name, but at a list of total strangers with surnames she'd never even heard before. Turning to us, her voice tight with a sudden, hollow dread, Sarah spoke to the camera. The math wasn't mathing. If I was 50% related to both John and Lynn, that made them my biological parents. They seemed connected to each other, or at least both tied to Mike. It was like three separate puzzles, and none of the pieces fit together. Sarah drove to her parents' house under the cover of night. The darkness felt absolute, pressing in from all sides, thick with the scent of damp earth and distant decay. Each mile deeper into the countryside made the air grow heavier, as if the very atmosphere was resisting her journey. The family home now loomed like a forgotten monolith against the night sky. I drove over without calling, a sudden compulsion pulling me there. I just showed up, the damp night air clinging to my skin as I approached. They were watching TV, the flickering blue light the only sign of life from within. The sheer normalcy of that moment became abruptly horrifying. I just blurted it out, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. My DNA test. Who is Eleanor R.? The color drained from John's face as he froze, remote clutched in his hand. My mother's expression wasn't confusion. It was pure, unadulterated terror. My father's gaze held only a chilling emptiness. The air grew heavy with the scent of ozone and cold dread. Like the lights had been extinguished, his voice dropped to an unsettling timbre. You shouldn't have done that. Not confusion, but a chilling reprimand. The atmosphere in the family room grew dense and oppressive. Sarah rose. Her parents remained slumped in their chairs, utterly defeated by the weight of what was coming. Sarah turned to the camera, her expression grave. The story that unraveled, she began, her voice low and steady, wasn't a single lie. This was a cathedral of lies, meticulously constructed over decades. John's voice, ragged and haunted, echoes from a memory. I learned I was infertile after we married, Sarah. It shattered me. A thick, metallic scent of old rust and damp earth permeated the space. Linda's yearning for a child was an ache I couldn't soothe. We turned to a donor. The pact was sealed in shadows, our silence absolute. John wasn't my father. The truth came with a stranger's name. It explained the half-brother, a donor sibling, a ghost in the family tree, a secret, once buried, now whispered from the grave. My heart ached for him, a hollow pang that echoed in my chest. But then, my gaze shifted to my mother, and the air grew heavy with the scent of old paper and dust. My voice dropped to a whisper, the words sticking in my throat like damp wool. But I'm a 50% match to you, Mom, and you're not related to Mike. A silent, agonizing pause stretched between them. Linda's eyes met John's, a desperate plea for help. Then, in a trembling whisper that barely carried across the room, Linda confessed, Mike isn't mine. The room seemed to tilt, the world shifting on its axis. My brother Mike wasn't her biological son. She'd had a difficult pregnancy that ended in stillbirth. The air grew thick with the scent of decay and old secrets. The revelation was crushing. John's brief, reckless affair had left him hollow, the consequences looming like a specter. The other woman was pregnant, a fact that settled in the room with a damp, metallic chill. Her decision was absolute. She did not want the child. In that sterile silence, broken only by the faint, rhythmic drip from a forgotten faucet, the weight of an impossible choice began to suffocate. John brought him home. In a memory thick with static and grief, Linda's broken voice echoes, he was just a baby. The scent of old, damp wool and sour milk hangs in the air of that recollection. He needed a mother, she sobs, the words catching like hooks in her throat. Then, the final, desperate confession, whispered into the suffocating quiet. I needed a son. We adopted him privately, illegally, telling everyone I'd given birth early while visiting my sister out of state. He was mine from the moment I held him. So Mike was my half-brother. Through our father, a father who wasn't my father. And I was my mother's biological daughter, through an anonymous sperm donor. We weren't a biological family, but a collection of profound, separate tragedies, bound by a desperate, silent pact. A metallic tang of ozone hung in the air, thick and unnatural, as if the very atmosphere had been torn. Sarah's voice, a low whisper in the void, cut through the oppressive quiet. And then I asked the final question, the one that had started it all. John buried his face in his hands, as Linda's confession filled the room with the sterile scent of antiseptic and loneliness. Linda reached for Sarah's hand across the cold kitchen table, but Sarah recoiled, her knuckles white against the worn wood. The air thickened with unspoken grief as Linda whispered, "When I went to the clinic, I was so alone." Her voice broke like brittle glass. John was grieving. The donor process was sterile, mechanical, a clinical chill that seeped through the sterile white. Then there was the nurse, Eleanor. Her kindness was an oasis in that arid, antiseptic place, a warmth that felt almost out of place. We spoke. She saw my shattered state and offered another path. Her brother had been a donor at that same clinic. The anonymity dissolved, replaced by a suffocating intimacy. A damp, metallic scent filled the space between us as I accepted. The truth, when it came, was not from a parent, but from the nurse herself. Sarah stared into the camera, the air thick with the scent of antiseptic and something metallic. Her words were a cold whisper, each one a sharp sting of realization. More human. She facilitated it. She's your biological aunt. It was my biological father's sister, the nurse's own brother. A man who might not even know I existed. The air in my living room grew thick with the metallic scent of old secrets and the damp chill of buried truth. Every family photo now whispered with hidden meaning. Every memory tainted by this revelation's cold, sticky weight. I was left with nothing but the scratching truth at the back of my mind, and the realization that my entire history had been a carefully constructed lie. The family photos had vanished from the walls, leaving only faint outlines in the dust. We never told Mike the truth about his parentage. My parents pleaded with me to keep their secret buried. He believes Linda is his biological mother, but the woman he calls mom shares no blood with him either. To reveal this truth would have shattered their world completely. I carry that secret too. The Millers still exist. We have dinner. We say, "I love you." But the words echo differently now. They hang in the air, thick with the scent of ozone and the cold, sticky dread that has seeped into our home. We were never bound by blood, but by fractures, infidelity, a stolen adoption, the desperate need to craft the illusion of a family. Each loss was a stitch in this fragile tapestry, pulling us tighter into a shared, suffocating fiction. The air in the room grew thick with the scent of old paper and something faintly metallic, like dried ink or rust. Now Sarah holds the photo, its tears meticulously mended with tape, every fissure a stark, undeniable truth. Her voice, a whisper almost lost to the stillness, asks the question that haunts the very foundation of this house. What is a family, really? Is it the truth etched in your DNA, or the story you tell yourself each day? We chose the story, but I look at my brother, my father, my mother, and I see strangers. I see people bound to me by nothing but a cruel, biological accident. A metallic scent hangs in the air, the smell of rust, or perhaps something older, as a profound, isolating dread settles in my bones. And I have to ask myself, and I'm asking you, if your family's story was a lie, would you ever want to know the truth?